Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Where There's a Will, There's a Way. My name's Will, and we have Bob in the corner there, and we have our guest tonight, Ben. Tonight, Ben's going to talk about grieving and bereavement, and also having a cleft lip and cleft palate, and how it's affected him through his life. Is there anything you want to say, lads?
No, I'm good, mate. I'm just happy to be here.
Yeah, mate, delighted to be back on doing one of your episodes, mate. Hope this is going to be one of many. It's important, mate, to get guests on. It's important to get the message across, especially you doing it yourself, Will. The benefit you get for this as well, pal. Hope there's plenty of episodes to come, mate, and plenty of good guests to come as well.
Thanks for that, Bob. What I'll do is I'll play a video on cleft lip and palate.
In this video, I'm going to be going through cleft lip and cleft palate. And you can find written notes on this topic at zerotofinals.com/cleftlip or in the ENT section of the Zero to Finals Pediatrics book. So let's jump straight in. A cleft lip is a congenital condition where there's a split or open section of the upper lip. This opening can occur at any point along the top lip and can extend as high as the nose. A cleft palate is where a defect exists in the hard or the soft palate at the roof of the mouth. This leaves an opening between the mouth and the nasal cavity. Cleft lip and cleft palate can occur together or on their own. Most cases of cleft lip or cleft palate occur randomly. Having a relative with a cleft lip or palate makes it slightly more likely, however it does not follow a traditional inheritance pattern. 3 in 10 cases of cleft lip or cleft palate are associated with another underlying syndrome. Let's talk about the complications of having a cleft lip or a cleft palate. Neither are life-threatening conditions, although it can lead to significant problems with feeding, swallowing, and speech. It can also have significant psychosocial implications, such as affecting bonding between the mother and the child. Surgery generally resolves these problems. Children with cleft palates can be more prone to hearing problems, ear infections, and glue ear. Let's talk about management. Patients should be referred to the local cleft lip service. This involves a specialist multidisciplinary team that includes specialist nurses to support and coordinate care, plastic, maxillofacial, and ENT surgeons, dentists, speech and language therapists, psychologists, and general practitioners. The first priority is to ensure the baby can eat and drink. This may involve specially shaped bottles and teats. The specialist nurse will follow the child through surgery and beyond to ensure good development. Definitive management is with surgical correction. This leaves a subtle scar but is generally very successful and gives full functionality to the child. Cleft lip surgery is usually performed at 3 months, whereas cleft palate surgery is done at 6 to 12 months.
So, Ben, what's your take on that?
I mean, it's educational, anyway. But I mean, it's pretty accurate to what I've been through. So in there, it didn't explain the 2 types. So there's a lateral, which is the one side that you see in the video, whereas I was born with a bilateral, so I had 2 openings. So one here, one there, which is where I've got my 2 scars in the middle here. You can see it's 2 scars. So
Handsome
I was born.
Better blow your nose, mate. You've got something hanging there.
Anyway, I was born with no top lip and no roof in my mouth, which is a palate. So I had none of that. So that was all reconstructed for me as a kid. So I had bit of lip here, bit of lip there, and there was like a wee dangly bit there with my nose. And basically what had happened was my mum and dad would have to get these specialist plasters that would help stretch the skin that was in the middle to meet across here. And then as soon as it met across here, then they stitched it together. And then that's what formed the top part of my lip. You know what I mean? So it took a while for that. You know what I mean? That probably took about 3 to 6 months worth of, you know what I mean, perseverance every day with specialist feeding bottles and all sorts of, you know what I mean, gadgets and that. But it was 1995, so you know what I mean. They were just kind of getting into having better resources then. So it's constantly evolved, and I've been lucky that things have evolved in that space over the years, and I've each year or every time I've went for surgeries, they've gotten better and better. I mean, they're not without the complications either, because sometimes I've had one operation in particular that I hasn't took, and I've had to get it redone. You know what I mean? That was called a bone graft. So they took shavings bone from my hip bone,
Okay.
and they put it into my top gum, because in my top gum I didn't have any bone. So that they done that when I was about 14, 15, and then I had to get it redone again at, a year later at 16, 17. So that was probably the only time I had to go through that, but that was a long recovery. That was 6 weeks. So that was soft food diet, you know what I mean, no exercise for 6 weeks. And it was just like you had to be very strict with it. And it's not the nicest, it's not the easiest, you know what I mean? But growing up with a cleft palate was probably, it was good and bad. Like, bad in the sense that I knew I was different, but brought up to not feel different, so I didn't feel different. But I knew I was different when I looked at like my other peers in primary school and nursery and whatever else, and I realised that I'm different. I look different. Why do I look different? So then my mum and dad kind of taught me coping mechanisms to talk about it, explain what it is to people. Make sure your rule is ask, don't stare. Because if you
Yeah.
stare, you know what I mean, I'm going to be annoyed. If you ask, I'm happy to talk about it. So that was the kind of rule that I went into school with. I've always been a very anxious person. Even when I was at school, I was always worried about things that I didn't need to worry about. I was always like, was it old head and young shoulders? You know what I mean? I was always that way. So I was very conscious of operations coming up, time that I've missed. And then I was anxious to go back to school because it was like, I would feel like I was so behind. And a lot of the time I did get stuff sent home and that, but it just wasn't the same as being in every day. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So catching up
Ben,
was just.
do you feel that your present day anxiety that Will and I know you battle with every day, do you think that stemmed from that as a youth, mate?
I think that stems from when I was younger.
As a youth, with in regards to your cleft palate and your self confidence?
I think I in a way, but no. Like, so I think I, because I was always like injected into school for a certain period and then ejected again, and then
Uh-huh.
trying to get back into that was always like an anxious thing in my head. Like, oh, I've had like 2 weeks off school because I've had to have this surgery. So what have I missed? Like, what my pals doing? Like, I've not been able to see anybody. You know what I mean, and stuff like that. So it would be like anxious and that come back in, and then because it wasn't really good enough to catch, like, because of the work I was getting sent home wasn't catching me up fully, like being in class every day. I was put in bottom section classes, even though I'm of average or above intelligence. You know what I mean? I was always been that, like, I was always a middle set kind of like kid in school, but because of losing time through different surgeries or each part of my like primary school and high school career, I'd always had to get put back down to then show them that I can be like good for a year and a half until I get my next surgery and be in the middle set again. And then when I go for another surgery, then I get put back down again. And then it's like it was just constantly like this. So I never really had a proper chance to excel in like primary school and high school in terms of education. I was always lucky that I had good friends and stuff like that. And I did experience a wee bit of bullying like early primary school, but the bullying, thankfully, I had friends that kind of noticed it, and you know what I mean. They sorted it out. You know what I mean, for my parents to know and stuff like that. So I was grateful for that. But I never experienced any in high school. Like, that was one thing my mum worried about going into high school. Or is he going to get bullied, because there's like all different age groups. There's like 12 to 18. You know what I mean? So like, are people going to, you know what I mean, badly bully them and stuff like that? But I never got any bullying in high school. Actually, a lot of people, just like I said earlier on, asked about it, so I told them. You know what I
I
mean?
think a
So
lot of that's down to your personality as well, Ben. Being part of the crowd, and I've surmised you're one of the popular guys as well.
aye.
Is that right?
I mean, I'd never say I was popular in school. I was always with like a small group of people. Like, I was never like invited to like to do like the cool shit at the weekend. Like, people were doing like back in the day, it was like aqua disco, or like the wee like the wee kind of nightclubs before the nightclubs and all
Roller
that.
disc.
You know what I mean? I was never I was never invited to any of them, but I had my aim we secure like 4, 5, 6 people that, you know what I mean, were solid, you know what I mean, in school, and I never really changed. I think my confidence levels becoming a social kind of butterfly, if you want, is when I left high school.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean?
So,
That's when I really gained my confidence in terms
so
of that.
when you were younger, right?
Mhm.
Obviously, you felt different, but what was it that made you feel different, and how did you feel different?
What made me feel different is small differences in like physical appearance. For me, like if I took like a yogurt to school in my packed lunch, right, and I ate a yogurt, 2 minutes later I'd be running down my nose. You know what I mean? Or if I took like anything like that. So these were things that I had to like cut out my meals and stuff like that at school. No, because I didn't like them, I didn't want them. It's just that I was embarrassed that what the outcome would be.
Yeah.
I couldn't be bothered like having to have tissues all the time, and even though I still to this day, you know what I mean, I've always got tissues on me to clear my nose and that, because it's just something that's been lifelong, that somehow no matter what I eat or whatever, there's always kind of excess that I get from my nose, and it's been frustrating. It's been a lifelong frustration. You know what I mean? Even to this day, I'm still in the process of getting in touch with surgeons again to see if we can close this off, because I don't know about you guys, but when you eat, unless you kind of like it goes down the wrong way or goes whatever, then that's when you would get some through your nose. But like, whereas me is,
Mhm.
I haven't got a separation between palate and nose, so everything I eat excess will go through my palate and then straight down my nose for a couple of minutes of eating it. So that's why I've always got to constantly clear my nose and like whatever, like that.
Mm.
That's just part of who I am. It's been frustrating for years, and it was embarrassing when I was in primary school. You know what I mean? It used to affect me quite a lot. You know what I mean? I used to never really want to attend school that much. You know what I mean? As well as the fact that I was already missing enough school as it was, and then I didn't want to attend school even further. So I think that's the reason why my primary school and high school career I never really made it through the bottom to middle sets, because I was never there enough, and anytime I was there, it was just I would get myself back to normal again where I should be, and then I go right away for it again. So that's how I think for me it was college and then university later that actually kind of progressed me as a confident human being, like learning people skills and being confident in the way I look and who I am and stuff like that. I mean, even down to like losing my hair. Started losing my hair at 16, so that's like 4th year in high school for me. Like, and like the back of my head, like it was pretty much see through. And I was lucky I still had a wee bit here until like I don't know, about 19, and then that was getting see through, and then I just had 20. I was like right off it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you
But
know,
even
yeah.
that, like just stuff like that, you know what I mean? Like I've
So,
always been aware of myself of how I look.
so when it came to learning, and like sports activities and stuff like that, how did it hold you back?
Well, learning, like I said, it was always I'd be up in the middle set at one for a certain period of time, and then I'd lose time for operations, and then I'd be back down. That was just normal. In terms of fitness, I, I was never really a fit kid. You know what I mean? Like in primary school, I was decent. I'd probably say I was decent. Like I'd have the old like you'd be fit in the summer months, and then you'd be like a wee bit of weight gain in the winter months, and then when I got to high school, it was just kind of I tried to avoid PE pretty much at every hand's turn. You know what I mean? Like my my pals have always had a good joke with me. You know what I mean? Going like that, you PE's like Olympics to you. You turn up once every 4 years. You know what I mean? And that was it. That was that was
Yeah.
genuinely how it was. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't. It's not that I wasn't bothered about how I looked, like gaining weight or whatever, because I did. I cared about that obviously, because that's the time you go through puberty and you start wanting to, you know what I mean, like speak to lassies and whatever else. So of course I was aware of that, but I couldn't get any sports in school. It was holding me back in some way, whether it was breathing properly through my nose because I've had breathing issues, you know what I mean, or whether it was just just self confidence issues with the way I looked and stuff like that, or like physically, you know what I mean. It was always that. So I never really enjoyed exercise and fitness until like I left school, and then that's when I kind of found the gym and you know what I mean, weightlifting and whatever else. So like it's been, I think everything that a lot of people do earlier in life, I've always did a wee bit later in life. You know what I mean? So anytime like people that I know of, like, oh, they've got a house, or they've got a new car, or they've got this, or they've got that. I've always been a wee bit behind in that, but no, because I'm not good enough. It's just because that's just been my progression in life. You know what I mean? I've always did that wee bit later than everybody else, but I've got there in the end.
Ben, what I'm picking up, mate, is that you've managed to get yourself to college and you managed to get yourself uni and done a degree, mate. That just proves to me that your early school years, at primary school and your adolescent years, through missing a lot of your operations, I mean, time off and healing for surgery, it's not held you back, mate. So you should be
No,
you
it's
should be
not.
feeling proud about yourself for that.
I'm definitely proud of that. You know what I mean? It's just took me a wee bit a long way for a shortcut, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I got there. You know what
Yeah,
I
of
mean? And
course.
I'm proud of myself that way because nothing.
2 years are proud of you as well, mate.
I appreciate that, man. Nothing has ever stopped me but myself when it's came to actually doing things.
So the bullying side of things, were you ever bullied from teachers or anything like that? Or was it just more peers?
No, it was. I got bullied in primary one, and that was a boy and a lassie in primary two, and they just picked on me for like how I looked in that, and just kind of basically, was just horrible. You know what I mean about it, and then that was it. I think maybe there was a couple of maybe other wee teething problems early years, but never nothing major. You know what I mean? It actually, we took my dad to go in and like I think it was like primary two or three, and he actually did like a talk in my class and explained to my class what I'd actually had and what,
Okay.
you know what I mean, the reasons why, you know what I mean, I missed time for school and stuff like that. So my dad actually went in and spoke, and you know what I mean, people were alright after that, and I never really had any trouble. You know what I mean? Like I said, I only get like badly bullied in primary like one, and then maybe a wee bit, and I got maybe primary five. It was a primary six person that bullied me, and that was it. And that was quickly dealt with. But other than that, like I've no suffered severe bullying where I can say that it's traumatized me. But it did affect me at the time. But it's no affected who I'm mentally as an adult.
Yeah. Okay. What about what was the hardest part about the whole thing when you were growing up?
About having a
With it?
cleft palate,
Yeah.
probably the surgeries. The surgeries, they were never bad to go through. Like I was always kind of confident enough to go under the needle and like get knocked out and that for the anaesthetic, but it was always the recovery after it. It was always the limitations that was put on me. It was like you can't do this, you can't eat that, you can't stretch this way or do that or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, you can't take your plasters off for about a week, or your stitches will dissolve on the rain and they'll fall out in the middle of the night sometimes, and like you'd wake up in the morning and there'd be like two wee blue stitches lying on your tongue
Yeah.
the night before, and it's just stuff like that. It was never hard because my mum and dad made it easy. You know what I mean? They did make it easy. Like they did everything and anything that would make me comfortable. Like my dad was, we always used to have this tradition that anytime I was going down to surgery, he would walk me down to the pre-op room, which was like where you get the anaesthetic before you go into the theatre. So he always used to walk me down there. We got into that room, and he would always kind of have a laugh with me and the nurses and stuff like that. You know what I mean? I remember getting a wee bit older, and he started like chatting up the nurses for me and all that. Oh, like my boy and that. You want to give me your number and all that. It was just ludicrous.
Just
You know what
sounds
I mean?
like Benny, mate.
It does, man. And then when I got older and I had my last big operation there, which was a rhinoplasty, which my nose getting broken, and reconfigured a wee bit so I could breathe better. That was the last operation I had. The last and first operation that my dad didn't attend. You know what I mean? Because there wasn't longer ways, and that was probably the hardest one because we had such a tradition, such a run. That was our thing.
I mind you at the time you were ready to go down and do that. We were on the phone to each other, mate, and you were a wee bit anxious about it. It says to you, do you want me to come along with yourself and your mum? Do you know what I mean? In that case, because I knew it was bothering you, pal.
It was.
Do you see, Ben, if there's going to be any more operations, pal, or is that you done?
Well, I'm having a wee bit of difficulty right now. Like my right nostril here was the one that got fixed and it got opened up so that I could breathe better. But then as a result, that somehow collapsed the left nostril, which was good to begin with. So I need to kind of go and get another referral and see what's happening there. So I may have to go back in. You know what I mean, for one more, but that'll be it after that because I would never, and I don't want to keep going at it and like re-breaking and re-scarring and stuff like that because it just gets to a point where what's done is done, and that's how I'm going to be for the rest of my life.
Ben, see when we first met, as mates, I never noticed it in you, mate. The only time that I picked up on it, mate, is when you were talking to me one time. You kept blowing your nose, and I says to you, "Have you got a cold?" And you explained to me what you had. I wouldn't have noticed. I wouldn't have noticed it in you, pal.
When I met you and Will, like and Matt, you know what I mean. I was very quite. I had a lot of surgeries under my belt, so I looked how I wanted to look. I had the jaw alignment surgery, which brought my jaw forward. Profiling my face was good. You know what I mean? The only thing I was waiting on was my nose, and that's how my nose was always that kind of
And your ears.
up away. And my ears, you know what I mean? Like, I did have issues with my ears. Like, I like in the video says it as well. You know what I mean? You get ear infections and stuff like that, and I'm always prone to stuff like that. So like I was well put together when I met you two in terms of like surgeries, you know what I mean? I looked as good as I could possibly look. Like from a surgical standpoint.
You wouldn't have seen it, mate.
Even when I started going out with Lucy, you know what I mean? Her dad's was a dentist, you know what I mean, for 30 years. And it took him almost nearly a year and a half before he actually realised that that's what I had. You know what I mean? Because I spoke about it one night, he went, "What, I didn't even realise." You know what I mean? And I went, "Well, that's a compliment to my surgeon, obviously." You know what I mean? That it's no noticeable.
What it is, I've put on the second video that I've got.
Listen, there's no right or wrong way to deal with the loss of a loved one. You can expect grieving to be rough, and it's different for every single person. Another important thing, it's not just a matter of coping with loss. It's about coping with change. It takes a lot of time. We're dealing with a pretty difficult subject. How do you deal with the death of a loved one? How do you live your life in the face of a life-changing event? We don't have all the answers, and honestly, you're going to have to work through your pain in your own way, at your own pace. But if you're looking for it, we do have some advice. First things first, you need to remember that grief is a process and not a task. You might have heard of a popular theory that breaks up bereavement into stages: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. While you might identify with some or all of these steps, you gotta remember that grief is less like a staircase and more like a roller coaster. There are peaks and dips, and they don't always happen in predictable ways. You might feel better for a while and then worse, and that's okay. It's natural to have an uneven journey with your grief. Don't be afraid of the pain. You shouldn't try to stuff your sorrow away into a place where you don't have to deal with it. It's just going to stay there. In order for you to work through your grief, you're first going to have to acknowledge that it exists. There are a lot of ways to do this. You might have to be alone for a bit. Maybe you need to write down your feelings in a journal or talk to someone. Do things that make you happy. When you're grieving, it's sometimes difficult to hold on to who you are. After all, so much of your energy is focused on the mourning of your loved one, which is fair, but it's easy to get sucked into a mind space where you can't even remember your former self. We want to tell you it's okay to take time to do the things that make you feel like yourself and give you joy. Recognize the relationship between the mind and the body. When you're experiencing grief, it's really easy to forget the things that you usually do as a matter of routine. Taking a shower, getting enough sleep, eating. Neglecting your physical health is only going to take a greater toll on your mental health, which is taking a pretty significant hit right now. So do yourself a favor and do us a favor and make an effort to take care of you. It's what your loved one would want. Reach out. You do not have to be alone in your grief. If your feelings are too overwhelming for you to sort out, that's okay. But go to someone else for help. It can be someone you know, a family member or a friend, or it can be a therapist or a professional who knows how to help people deal with this exact situation that you find yourself in right now. Just the act of talking out loud about your feelings can be incredibly cathartic. Finding someone who can help you sort them and work through them is even better.
So, that was bereavement, and that takes us nicely on to the next bit with Ben about bereavement. When was it? 4 years ago? Or 5 years ago now? Yeah.
No, 4 years ago. 4 years ago.
4 years ago.
Aye.
4 years ago. It's a long time. Flew by.
It is, aye. It's only kind of like I do relate to that video quite a lot, like the roller coaster that is grief. You know what I mean? Like there's peaks and valleys to it, and there's definitely highs and lows. You know what I mean? And you try and find comfort where you can, and it does. It can take a toll on your mental health in terms of how motivated you are to live in certain regards, and what you want to do with yourself day to day, and how you process, you know what I mean, that person not being there. So like I lost my dad, right? Like obviously you guys know that, but for the sake of the pod I'll explain. So I lost my dad in 2021, January 9th, through diabetes related illnesses. So my dad wasn't a very good diabetic. He became diabetic when I was about 14, 15, and it was only because he had a car crash on the M8 motorway. It wasn't his fault. He was out driving, and an Arctic lorry didn't see him in his blind spot and basically threw my dad's car into the barrier. And my dad came out unscathed, just bruised and battered a bit, but he was fine. And then he went to the hospital, got checked over, and a wee doctor says, do you mind if I do some blood tests and that? And he went, aye, whatever. Done blood tests, and the doctor came back and said, by the way, you know you're diabetic. And that was basically it. My dad found out about like 40. You know what I mean? He was a diabetic, 42 or something. And he never really accepted it. He never really accepted the changes he had to make in his life, because he'd been living a certain way for like 40 years at that point. So he never really accepted the fact that he had to look after himself. And I mean, he got away with it for, you know what I mean, must have been 15 or so years. You know what I mean? He got away with it. And then the last couple of years before he died, that was when he didn't get away with it. So one morning he was on a lot of heavy painkillers for different things like nerve damage and stuff like that, like diabetes go through. And he got up and he was in quite a daze for the medication. He got up to go to the toilet, and he was using the toilet and he fell back while standing there a pee because he was half asleep because of the medicine, and he snapped his ankle. So he snapped his ankle and he got obviously rushed to hospital. But when he was in hospital, he got it operated on, he got it reset. But because my dad was delirious and stuff like that with the medication, he tried to get out of bed again and he re-broke it. You know what I mean? Because he thought he was
Son of
alright.
man.
I know. So because of that, they reset it again, but they says they had issues with the fact that they didn't know if it would heal quick enough because my dad's blood sugars, and this is what the doctor said and the diabetic expert said, was so out of control that they don't even know how he's still alive. You know what I mean? Like his test, like I think that a high test was like 100, right? That was like out of like whatever, right? And my dad's was somewhere like 3,000 odd. You know what I mean? So my dad's was like haywire. You know what I mean? So the fact that my dad even was alive and like hadn't lost his eye, well, he was losing his eyesight at certain points. Like he'd like problems with the back of his retinas and stuff like that, and he had to get retinal screening like constantly every year, like any diabetic does. But he, like, had to get it more checked than normal, and so they basically asked me and my mum, look, we need permission to amputate his leg because this isn't going to heal, and then it'll cause gangrene, and then he'll lose more than just this leg. You know what I mean? They could lose his life through infection and whatever. So this was like before I think it was like 2018, before Christmas. You know what I mean? We had to make that decision, like, for my dad's leg to be removed while he was, you know what I mean, hopped up in painkillers and everything else, and he couldn't agree to it himself. So my mum had to sign papers to, because she was his carer as well, you know what I mean, legally. So she had to sign the papers to say, aye, we need to take his leg below the knee. And that was just kind of my dad's downfall at that point. You know what I mean? And for the next 2 years, it was a struggle, you know what I mean, mentally for me, because I was both his son, his carer, you know what I mean, like stuff like that, as well as my mum. My mum did it full time. Like, I'd never take away her credit in this because she was with him every day religiously, you know what I mean. I did get breaks, but it was breaks to go to like university, work, day or that, you know what I
How
mean.
was your dad's? See, explaining that to us, mate? Sorry for jumping in. How was your dad's? You're saying that after the loss of his leg, the amputation. How did his mental health and his did he take a deterioration on that?
Aye, I mean, my dad's mental health was never good in his life anyway. Like, he suffered a lot of childhood trauma and stuff like that through different things that I wouldn't go into, obviously, for sort of respect. But he had a lot of childhood trauma that was unresolved, so he'd always had problems with his mental health. But losing his ability, because my dad was always quite a frequent flyer. Like, my dad would always be out and about in the bus going to. My dad liked to attend AA meetings. You know what I mean? Like, and he was always at AA, like twice a day, sometimes 7 days a week. He would always be there for people. You know what I mean? Like, my dad had that mentality. Even though he was hurting, he would always help somebody else. You know what I mean? So that was just the kind of character he was. But so for 2 years he struggled, like, having the loss of mobility, and when 2020 came about, the pandemic, it was a nightmare. You know what I mean? Like, he just couldn't understand how everything had shut down and everything was the way it was. Like, he was doing AA meetings on Zoom calls and all that, and it was trying to teach him how to do that, and he was a bit of a technophobe, so it was like trying to show him how to work that shit. That was a task in itself. It was funny, but it was a task. And basically, the Christmas 2020, I was really down. You know what I mean? I was really down because of everything that was going on. You know what I mean? Like, how stressful it was with university, trying to get through uni, as well as dealing with I'd actually just finished uni, but then it was just the decompression coming down for uni that couple of months up to Christmas, and I just really took a bad mental health spell. And I remember saying to my mum and dad on Christmas Day in 2020, I was like, I really don't want to be here. Like, I really, really don't want to live. You know what I mean? And that hurt my dad. I could see it did on Christmas Day. Like, he was really upset. You know what I mean? And so was my mum. She was in tears. She was like, lots of tears. And I went, listen, look, I don't want to do anything about it. Like, and I've never been like one of these people, like, because you know there's some people out there that can say that they want to kill themselves, they're going to kill themselves, and they're just doing it as an attention thing, as today, like, seek attention. But this wasn't this. Like, I was like clear on the fact that I didn't want to be here, but I know in my heart that I don't want to do that. I want to be here, but that's how I feel right at that moment in time. So I said that.
Yep.
Christmas was a bit touch and go, but I got some nice photos with my dad. Not realising that they were going to be the last photos that I had with him. And we had got Christmas over. I was just starting to kind of get better, get into the new year. And then the 4th of January 2021, my dad got took into hospital with what was perceived to be his third bout of sepsis, but he had an ulcer on his toe, on the remaining foot that he had, and that basically got infected, and they decided to remove it. So that the 4th of January was a Monday. We took him up to the hospital. That was when everybody was, I don't know if you remember, but I remember just because obviously it was happening at the time, that everybody was skating on Queen's Park pond. That was when the really bad ice was there and everybody was skating. So when we phoned for an ambulance, they said to us that it was going to take about 18 hours for an ambulance because they were so backlogged. You know what I mean? With things, and I was like, look, my dad's not got 18 hours, he'll probably be dead in 18 hours if we don't do anything about it. So I says to them, can you get somebody to meet us at the A&E reception and admit him if we bring him up? So we ended up bundling him into Lucy's car, and we got him to Queen Elizabeth, and that was at the time, obviously, we were still under COVID restrictions, so we couldn't go in with him. So we had to just drop him at the door, and he was saying to my mum, oh, don't leave me, Maggie, and all that, and it was heartbreaking, you know what I mean? But we didn't think the worst. We just thought, he's in hospital, we'll get seen to. So the Wednesday they removed his toe, and really, right, okay, that's fine. But for the minute he got in there, he was on oxygen, which we thought was quite strange, because we're like, why is he on oxygen if he's got an infection in his toe? Like, what? Why is he struggling to breathe? So we were a bit perplexed by that. So everything went all right. He phoned me, I think, the Thursday, saying that he was sorry for all the kind of, like, any of the hurt and all that he put me through, and you know what I mean, being the way he was being and that. And I just said, look, Dad, I accept your apology, I love you, everything else. And that was the last day I spoke to him, was the Thursday. So then the Saturday is the day he died. So I got up in the morning to go to work, and I was like, half an hour before I go to work, my mum gets a phone call for the nurse, the doctor even, sorry. Doctor says it's about Mr. Hampton, and we're like, what's wrong with him? He's struggling to breathe at the minute. We're going to take him to we're going to take him to no ICU, but the one below that, urgent care or something. It's like the one below ICU. Like, they're going to have 2 nurses round the clock with him, and he's going to be looked after. And then I was just like, right, okay, what does this mean? I says, are you saying that my dad might die here? And they're like, no, he's got a good chance. He just needs to go down and get a bit more intensive treatment. You know what I mean? And we're like, right, okay, no bother. They're like, right, I'll get a nurse to phone you in like half an hour once he's been transferred with the new ward number and everything else. I'm like, right, okay, no bother. And then like 15 minutes, 20 minutes go by. She said, I'll phone you in an hour, and then like 30 minutes went by, and then I answered the phone from my mum's phone, and like, can we speak to Mrs. Summers? And we're like, right, okay. And then put my mum on the phone. It was on loudspeaker, so I could hear. And she's like, oh, just to let you know, Bernard passed away there 5 minutes ago. And we're like, so we went through. He's alive. He's got a good chance. He just needs extra attention. To 30 minutes later, he's dead. You know what I mean? Like that was it. Like, I didn't get like your dad's got this and that. He might be dying. It was
Yeah.
no, everything will be alright. He just needs a bit of extra attention. To your dad's dead. You know what I mean? And I just remember, like, I still remember standing in my kitchen going, no, this isn't real. I've just said it out loud, no, this isn't real, no, this isn't real. And then my mum just, like, nearly fallen to the deck. I had to lift her up. And I was like, right, we need to go to the hospital. So I had to, well, Lucy phoned my boss for me. And at the time, she, like, because she had gave me time off at Christmas and that for my anxiety and stuff, she was kind of getting a wee bit ticked off, you know what I mean, because she thought it was another kind of mental health thing that was going on, you know what I mean, and she didn't really understand the circumstances. So then I phoned my other boss, who was like one of my good friends, and I says, look, this is the situation, you know what I mean, she's reacted this way to Lucy on the phone, or Lucy phoning in for me, but this is what happened, my dad's died, blah blah blah. So that ended up getting squashed pretty quickly. I ended up rushing up to the hospital with my mum and Lucy, and Megan rushes up with my sister rushes up with her girlfriend at the time, and I just remember walking into the ward, and as soon as we said who we were there for, we just get the weirdest looks at the medical staff in there, like the nurses and all that. They were all hanging their heads in shame. You know what I mean? Like something. You know, that mark of respect and that. It was like,
Yeah.
is that something shady had went on? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I was like, this doesn't add up. So one of the doctors who was dealing with him came round. No, the doctor that was dealing with him, which was even worse, but one of the doctors that was dealing with him came round and took us into the wee kind of room, like family room off the ward. Took us in there and basically explained, oh, this is what happened. He was struggling to breathe. We tried to resuscitate him. We got him back. He was doing all right, and then he went back into that state. We tried to resuscitate him and we couldn't. And I'm like, why were you needing to resuscitate my dad? So I just started like, Megan and my mum was just in like states of grief. They didn't know what to say,
No,
you know.
sure.
But I was just kind of sprung into action. You know what I mean? My grief was just kind of put to the side for a second because like now I'm in action
Right,
mode here. Like,
excellent.
what the
You're
hell
just
is
looking
going
for answers, pal.
Aye, exactly. So I'm like, what's going on here? Like I said, why is my dad dead? Like why is he dead? Like what have you done or what have you no looked at that, you know what I mean, caused his death? I says, look, I know he wasn't the easiest person to deal with in terms of he was self-sabotaging himself with his diabetes. I get that, but he's been under control for the last year and a half, 2 years since he lost his leg. Like we've been regulating him. We've been making sure he was all right. Like he was coming in here for an ulcer, you know what I mean, a diabetic ulcer, which is a routine thing for diabetics. You know what I mean? They should have been treated and dealt with. Why is he struggling to breathe? Why is he died? And then they were trying to say, oh, there was like some black mark in his lung on an X-ray, and I went, but why did we not know this? I said, my mum is his legal carer, so why did we not know any of this? Why are we just finding this out now that he's gone? And it was just a bit of back and forth, and I went, look, you know what, I don't really care at this point in time. I want to see my dad. So we went in the room, and then my mum sat down beside him, and she just started crying, and she was like, oh my god, Benny's still warm, and blah blah blah. And I was like, cool. And then my sister said what she had to say to him, and then I was like, right guys, you need to leave the room. And they're like, right, cool, we'll give you time, man. And I remember holding his hand, and it was still warm. And I remember saying to him, I said, look, no matter what happens from here on in, I'll look after mum. I'll look after Megan. I'll do what I need to do to make sure that our family's alright. And as I said that, it's just, I felt his hand go cold, and it was just, oh man, it was just something else. It was like he hung on, like, to listen to what we all had to say to him before we
That's
left.
what it sounds like, Ben. That's
Aye,
exactly what it sounds like, mate.
I remember it, and then I remember saying, like, wow man, that was something else, and I remember getting a reading for my mum off this psychic who I don't know if people believe in psychics or no, but me and my family tend to believe in psychics, and this one was highly recommended. Paula O'Brien, she's amazing. If anybody wants to check her out, check her out. We got a reading like a couple of months later. Maybe, or was it January? No, or was it not? It was like for my mum's birthday, so we booked it. It was for the September, and she gave us a reading, and she was so accurate. She basically said that my dad did hang on for us to like say goodbye to him and stuff like that. That was his soul leaving him and stuff like that. And there was a lot of stuff. I mean, I've shared the clip with the voice thing with you guys. Like a lot of the stuff that she said, she couldn't have known about us. She couldn't have like took a stab in the dark and guessed any of that. Like that was all coming from my dad, because there was stuff that, like, there was things that he used to say. Like one of the things that my dad used to say, right, and Paula mentioned it, as well as a friend of mine's gran who was kind of clairvoyant, right. One of the things my dad used to say, my mum going out for when he get out for taxiing at night, because he was 77 when he was a private hire taxi driver. He used to go, right, see you later, Ben, Megan, love yous, and then like, alright, Maggie, I'm away. Mind no strange men in the house while I'm away, right? that was his comment, right? That was the always comment. But these two psychics said this to us, you know what I mean? My friends. Gran said that a couple of days after my dad had died, and she didn't know my dad well enough to know that was a saying in my dad's, right? So she said that, and then Paula said that as well, and it just kind of reconfirmed everything, and it was like, it was mental, man. But like for me, the day my dad died, man, like my grief was put to the side, because I was just looking after the affairs in the house, trying to deal with the insurance policy. My dad had an insurance policy for like £5,000, and he had took it out the year before when my uncle died, and like, oh, we need to get insured, and basically it was taken out on the 13th of January 2020, and it had to go a full year before it would be able to get paid out on. My dad died on the 9th of January, a year later, so they were on a 4-day technicality. They weren't going to pay us the money. So we didn't have any money to pay for a funeral, and Megan's friends had set up a GoFundMe. Now, me and my mum or my sister didn't ask for it. You know what I mean? We're not the type of people to ask for money or whatever. So we never asked, but they did it. They said, "Look, this is the only way we know how to help you is going through your grief process, and they're like, let us do this." I'm like, cool, do what you want. You know what I mean? And then within a day and a half, we had like £2,500 for like friends and family. You know what I mean? Or
That's
donations. You know what I
amazing,
mean?
Phil.
I
Amazing.
10,
Yeah.
20, £30, £50, some £100 or £150. You know what I mean? And it was amazing. But I remember like dealing with the funeral place, Alec Black's in Drumchapel, and my dad was an old acquaintance, Alex, and so we does all the funeral planning. My dad's funeral doesn't happen until like the 3rd of February, like so nearly a month after he died, and it was 2 days before my birthday on the 5th of February. So that was obviously a bit of a weird birthday that year, you know what I mean? But the morning in my dad's funeral, I get a phone call for the funeral director, Alec, and he's like, "Oh, listen, Ben," he says, "I didn't realise your dad had passed." He says, I was an old pal of your dad's, blah blah blah. He says, look, I'll knock something off the bill as well for you. He says, because like your dad was a good pal. We grew up in the same street and in Invercarney together. He says, so I'll do that for you. And I was like, oh, it's brilliant. And I says, listen, I says, my dad always had a joke with us that he was to never go through your funeral place. And he's like, oh, aye, how come? And I says, he said, because you battered fuck out him one time for stealing his baby years ago. You know what I mean? And I was like, and Alex started howling. He's like, he says, I can't believe he told you that. He's like, he says, we said to him we didn't want to hang about with him that day, so he said to like he got annoyed at us, so he stole our baby and hid it, and then so we knocked fuck out him for a wee bit, and then he told us what the baby was, and then he ended up coming to drink with us anyway. You know what I mean? And I was like, oh fuck man, that's brilliant. Aye, so that's what I said to him. I was like, I said, I never get me buried or cremated by that cunt Alec. That's what he said. And then
Alex,
so we had a laugh with that. No, no, it was brilliant because Lucy had done the driving that day because I was just too emotional. And I remember we pulled up, so we went down Invercarney, then we went to Cherry Crescent, which is Mall Street. And all the neighbours and that had came out for us and that, and I got out my car and I just said thank you to everybody that kind of like who was in the immediate vicinity of my house where my old house was. And they were all out as neighbours, and I said thanks very much, guys. I really appreciate it. Blah blah blah. So at this point, I'm still not even in grief mode yet. You know what I mean? And then we get just outside Dalnota Cemetery, and we're coming up the hill, and Alec phones me. And he's like, he says, you want to walk your dad in? He says, you want to walk the cars in? He says, me and you'll do it. And I says, aye. So I remember, like, he asked my sister. My sister's like, nah, I'm not doing it. Like, she was just in bits, and my mum was the same. And I'm like, but I wasn't in bits. You know what I mean? Like, I was obviously hurting, but like, my head was so strong that day. And
Just went into autopilot, mate, ain't you?
Aye, mate. It was clear autopilot. And then I got out of the car and I walked my dad in, and because we were under restrictions as well still at that point, so we were only allowed 20 people at the funeral, which anybody who knows my dad was popular, more popular than 20 people. So as we're coming round the gate, we're in the first building to the left, the back of the building, the first one. We take the left in, and then there's like a mass of people, like family and friends, that are all waiting for us to come in. And even like one of my big bosses as well, you know what I mean, he was there and he was in his uniform for us and all that, and just kind of showing respect. And I remember just like walking by everybody, just kind of nodding at them, you know what I mean, saying thanks very much for being here, blah blah blah. And it was something else, man. And we went in and had the funeral, and we did the video cam thing so everybody could see it. And it was a good funeral in terms of like we made sure it was a humanist one. It was spoke about my dad, know about God and that, even though we are believers, but we wanted it just about my dad, and that was it. And it was lovely. My uncle, my dad's sister's husband, who's a minister, he conducted the service, and it was lovely. And we picked a few good songs, but I remember my song was the last song to play, and I should have picked Bohemian Rhapsody Queen, right, because that was so significant to me and my dad, but I never, because I didn't want to ruin the song for me. So even in my grief, I was like, no, I don't want to ruin this for me, because this is a belter a song that me and my dad enjoy. So I want this to be happy when I put it on, and not remind me of the day we put him to rest. So I chose I Want to Break Free. And it came on as the curtains were closing, and then I remember coming out the funeral parlour, and everybody was like texting me, like my cousins and that couldn't make it, were watching it on the live stream, and they were like messaging me going, I can't believe you did that as his song, I Want to Break Free. Like, that's so funny. Like, he's burning and you're like, I Want to Break Free is coming on. So it was it was an absolute mess that month. You know what I mean? But I was in autopilot, and my grief never really hit me till like days after the funeral, and that was when my anxiety and like depression and just kind of all round well being was just kind of tarnished. You know what I mean? And then I was out having walks and stuff, and I bumped into one of your good pals, Chaz Atkins. And I bumped into him, and he says, "Oh, you need to come to Men Matter." He says, "Square yourself up and get yourself better." And then that's when I did. I messaged the Facebook page at the time, set up an appointment, and I came in and met Gregor and that, and through there, you know what I mean. I got to meet you, Will, first. I met you at the talk groups, and we had a good chinwag.
Oh, it wasn't a wag, it was greeting all the time.
It was great all the time because you you had went through something.
How can you say hi apart from going?
You know, so we were very upset, and then I remember meeting Bob when I became a volunteer for a period of time, and
Yeah.
he came in and I looked at him and I went, he's obviously gone through something that nobody wants to approach him, and I was like, I'm going to approach him because that's my job at the time, and I'm like, I sat down beside Bob and I went, what's happening, mate? What you in for? You know what I mean? And then Bob, just being Bob, he just fucking, he tells you everything, you know what I mean? And it's like brilliant. I like this guy. I'm gravitating towards him, and it's just for there. I found my wee pocket of pals who, like, when the shit hits the fan, I can call. You know what I mean? And I'm really grateful for the two of yous. You know what I mean? Like, I'm
Same here,
beyond
Paul.
grateful.
Same
You
here.
know what I mean? For the two of yous.
So,
And
when did you realise that it actually hit you? Because for me, it was 2 days later. I think I'd been up at my mum's and I was walking down Dalseta, or the day after, I think it was actually. I was walking down Dalseta and it hit me there, and I just broke into tears, fell to my knees in the middle of the street. Pure. That's when it actually hit me.
I think for me, it was kind of a couple of days after as well, when the dust had settled, and I didn't need to be in organising mode. You know what I mean? All the organising had been done, all the debts had been paid, all my mum's like documents and affairs had been sorted as well. Now that she was living on her own, with my dad and stuff and all that. So I think it hit me then, and it was just kind of waves of being okay one day, panic attacks the next, and then no eating some days, and then, you know what I mean, anything I did eat, I wanted to throw up immediately. You know what I mean? Because that's one of my anxiety responses if I'm going through a hard time or I'm having panic attacks. You know what I mean? The first thing I want to do is be sick. You know what I mean? I don't know why that's my response. I don't know how it's my response, but that is what my response is. And I just remember that it was such a tough time until I got to Men Matter and things started kind of settling down a wee bit. But it took a lot of people. Well, nah, it didn't take a lot of people. It took a few people. You know what I mean? Lucy being the primary one, like she was dealing with me constantly, like the ups and downs, the just not knowing where I was day to day in my head. You know what I mean? And she was a real saviour in that point because she looked after me. You know what I mean? And what I found was, there were so many people who gave me like fake condolences and gave me like, "Oh, we're here for you anytime you need it." And then after the funeral happened, one day there, it just disappeared, and they weren't there. And that's what really kind of made me feel alone. You know what I mean? Was the fact that, you know what I mean, I've lost my dad, but then I also feel like I've lost these people who I'm supposed to have called friends and whatever else. And I was just like, this isn't how, like,
That's meant
it's
to be.
you know what I mean? There's supposed to be people around you to help you and, you know what I mean, support you. But I only had a select few friends that were checking in on me like every day, like sending me a message, how you doing? Do you need anything? Do you want to do stuff? And you know what I mean? I'm grateful for them and they know who they are. You know what I mean? I don't need to shout them out because they know they were the ones that did text me and did, you know what I mean, did their bit as a pal, like I would have done to. So I'm not going to like start naming names and stuff because you know what I mean. They know they were a good pal to me. And I honestly like it became the most isolating thing. You know what I mean? Because I went through like living with my dad and my mum and having my sister. So it being two guys, two women to like just me being the only guy and all these women in the house, and it it was like I felt like my perspective as a guy couldn't be heard anymore. Like my how I was feeling, how I was processing things. You know what I mean? Was completely different. You know what I mean for them, and I think that's what really helped with Men Matter and finding you guys was the fact that I could say, look, this is my perspective on things. Have you dealt with this before? Have you dealt with this like challenging your ego, your you know what I mean, your mental stability with this and that and the next thing. And I think going through those wee kind of ups and downs and peaks and valleys, as you say, you know what I mean, you learn a lot of coping mechanisms. And for me personally, it's been a struggle the last 4 years, but I have got to better places, and then I've dipped slightly, but I've got better quicker because I recognise what's going wrong and I recover it faster, which I'm more happy about. You know what I mean? That I know that if something is coming up, like if there is a dip coming up, then I know that I can handle it and I can recover it faster, and I don't need to go into massive spiral panic attacks, or I don't need to, you know what I mean, like completely have like time off work, or you know what I mean, like completely, you know, being in a slump, anxiety and depression. I can just deal with like this is why I'm feeling this way. This is what I need to do, and then I'll check in with you guys and be like, look, I'm feeling this way. Going to remind me of what I'm supposed to do, even though I know what I'm supposed to do. When I hear it being given to me as advice, I learn and go, right, that's exactly the right thing that I've got in my head, but I just need somebody to reconfirm that to me, that that's the right thing, and then I'm good again. You know what I mean? Like recently, for example, like turning 30 last week. You know what I mean? I know you guys have done that already in life, but for me, that was a big birthday, and a big birthday that my dad wasn't there for. So when it came to these kind of milestones, I think I've noticed that's where I'm going to be taking dips. You know what I mean? And I know that you guys have told me it's normal and stuff like that, and it is. But I think I didn't realise that it was going to happen. I just thought, oh, turning 30, you know what I mean? I'll do this and I'll do that. But like turning 30, I'd never, like, honestly, never felt so alone turning 30. Like, I just felt like I didn't really have many pals. You know what I mean? I didn't, like, I didn't really make many plans last week for my 30th birthday, if I'm honest. You know what I mean? Because I didn't want to hassle anybody. You know what I mean? I didn't want to be like, oh, because the way my birthday falls in February, everybody's just been paid, try to sort out their bills for Christmas and all that. And I didn't want the hassle and disappointment of like maybe arranging a party or arranging a night out or whatever, because I just didn't want to deal with the disappointment. So I kept it low key for my mental health and my, you know what I mean, pride, I think, you know what I mean, because I just didn't want to be asking people to come and do things or come and be my pal, if you get me. And I just,
That's not a bad thing, Ben. That's about self-preservation, Paul. Do you know what I mean? You played that card to suit yourself, Paul.
I know, but I also think like, where was the kind of like anybody like, oh, mum will do this for your 30th, or mum will do that, or what, like, you know what I mean? Like, oh, get a grip, man, like, mum will do this for your 30th, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't really get any of that either. You know what I mean? A lot of people just accepted the fact that I wanted to keep it low key. Nobody really questioned it. Nobody really said, "Oh, let's do this or do that," and like, you know what I mean, get me up for it. You know what I mean? It was just, so I was just like, you know what, I'm glad I made that decision to keep it low key, because it seems like it would have been hassle trying to get anybody to do things. You know what I mean? And that's just how I felt. And I know that the last couple of years with dealing with anxiety and stuff like that, I might have not been the best pal either. You know what I mean? But I've never not been able to check in on people, and I've never not been able to like make sure everybody's all right. And I've always seemed to be that if I don't do it, nobody else does. You know what I mean? And that's always really kind of upset me. You know what I mean? Because it's like sometimes it feels like friendships are a one-way street at times. You know what I mean? For me, no necessarily with like you guys and like other people, but like,
you're welcome.
no, you guys, but like I think certain people, you know what I mean, and I don't blame people where I'm not upset with them, because like we all have our own lives to lead, and we all have our own bullshit, and we all, you know what I mean, have our own day-to-day struggles and stuff. So there's no like, it's no all poor me thing. But at the same time, you know what I mean, it's nice to hear from your pals and go like, you doing alright, and you know what I mean, when he's free and whatever. You know what I mean? But it just feels like I got to a point where it was just me making the messages, and that's how I was really kind of, my mentality for turning 30, I was really just like so like anxious and so upset about it, and so like missing my dad, because it was a milestone that he was missing. Because I know he would have made a fuss about it. You know what I mean? I know he would have made a fuss, "Oh, you're 30 and all that," and blah blah blah, and he would have made a laugh and a joke and a sing song about it. You know what I mean? I know he would have. And then he would have tried to make it about him, because, you know what I mean, he was a big attention whore. You know what I mean? And but, like, you know what I mean, stuff like that. You know what I mean? It's like when like special like things come like that about, like my graduation was one, I know, like a couple of years ago. That kind of, the lead up to that kind of had me spun. You know what I mean? Like stuff like getting married. You know what I mean? In the future, like buying my first house. You know what I mean? All these wee milestones for me. That's when I know I'll take my dips. You know what I mean? And I'm recognising that now as my grief's going on. Is that 4 years on, that I will take my dips at certain stages, you know what I mean, and for certain reasons. It'll no be just because, it's because, you know what I mean, these are events and moments in my life that, you know what I mean, he's no longer there for in person. He is in spirit, but in person, you know what I mean, and that's what got me. That's how I was very sort of turned off about my birthday last week, because like it was 4 years 2 days before my birthday that his funeral was, and then 2 days later was my birthday, and I remember how I felt on that birthday, and that was like, what, like 26. I didn't really feel anything turning 26, and then now I was turning 30, and I'm like, oh my god, this is a big one, and you know what I mean, like, I'm going into my 30s now, and I just didn't feel it. I just didn't feel that way about it, you know what I mean? And
So when did you, I think how to put this, when did you finally like come to terms as such, if you know what I mean? When did you come to terms with it, and how did you deal? What helped you get to that stage?
I think a lot of things helped me get to that stage. I think breathing techniques, cold plunges, you guys talking about it, like, I think it all just put a different spin on like what's going on in my life and what I'm doing with myself, you know what I mean, and how I want to move forward in life. And that's when I kind of accepted the fact that he was gone. I think it was my graduation was the important one. I think, all right, he's no longer here, and I kind of felt his presence that day. You know what I mean? Even though he wasn't there in person, and that's kind of the day that I was like, I accept that he's not here anymore, but I also miss the fact that he's not here.
The thing is, mate, that nobody teaches us about grief. Everybody deals it in a different way, and the loss of somebody, it's just there's an empty void there, isn't there? And then on the other hand, I've I got to know your dad through you telling me about his character, you showed me a video about him, mate. I was in stitches laughing about him, man. And that's the things that you hold on to. Do you know what I mean? They're the precious moments, pal. I mean, I think when you showed me the video and that, and you talked to me about your dad, man, what a character, man. What a brilliant character, mate, honestly.
He is. He is, mate. He was something else, mate. You know what I mean? You couldn't describe him in one word, mate. He was a multicoloured lunatic. You know what I mean?
That's a good way of putting that, mate. I like that. I like that,
He was,
pal.
mate. Like he had every belief under the sun. He had every character under the sun. He could play about 8 people a day. You know what I mean? That's just the way his psyche was set up, man. He was some character, mate.
Brilliant.
But aye, man, that's.
So, what did you do to kind of commemorate him? Did you do anything in particular like that?
Aye. So I took parts of his ashes and I scattered them on the top of Ben Nevis. And it was just coincidentally because when we were volunteers at Men Matter, we got asked to go and support a family who was going to do a charity walk up Ben Nevis, and me and Bob came by the house, grabbed them at like 4 in the morning, and then we set up to go to Ben Nevis, and that was one of the hardest climbs I'd ever done because I'd done it raw. I didn't have any training, you know what I mean? I wasn't training consistently back then, and it really took a lot out of me. My mentality, my soul, my physical body. I broke everything that day. You know what I mean? To honour a wish that my dad had. He always told me that put me on the highest mountain in Scotland. You know what I mean? Or one of the highest mountains in Scotland, put me on. And I did. I put them on the highest. You know what I mean? And I scattered them, and I.
On that day, Ben, you remember, mate, that we'd walk through the cloud line and it was all snow. And we got up there and how busy it was, and mate, and we actually the milestone, believe it or not, everybody kind of dispersed for it, mate, and we had that place to ourselves. And I can always remember you put your daddy's ashes on it and they actually stuck to the milestone, mate.
It wouldn't blow away.
They wouldn't blow away, mate.
Brilliant.
That was quite fitting.
It was. I remember that because like we had just had such a long talk that day because there was just so much like surface we had to cover, and we were just talking forever, getting up there, and we were just motivating each other and that. And I remember coming down, and we were walking and we were talking. You're like, "Oh, my ankle's killing me," and I'm like, "Oh fuck, man, I know." And then we were just talking about you, and I went, "Well, you know, you're a nut job, but you're a fucking brilliant nut job."
Oh, mate, we needed that, didn't we?
Oh, we did, mate.
We needed that. That got us down the rest of the mountain, mate, didn't it?
Oh, it did, mate. That was that last quarter, mate. Just helped us. You know what I mean?
Aye.
I was gutted I couldn't make it.
You were spent by then, mate. You'd done yourself right in with everything, your emotions and your physical side and everything, mate. You'd nothing left on you, but you managed to get there, mate. We managed to get you down at the mountain. It was a good day, mate.
It was.
A good day, mate. A day I'll always cherish and remember.
Same, mate, for me as well. Like any other days I've had with you guys, you know what I mean? It's been a real pleasure to actually just spend that time with you and like allow myself to grieve in those aspects. I think a lot of people haven't seen like just how low sometimes I can be in those pockets of grief, you know what I mean, that I've had the last 4 years, but you guys have. I've seen it all, you know what I mean? You've been at a phone call or a FaceTime or a, you know what I mean, like a trip to like Lust or something like that or whatever, you know what I mean, just to chat the shit out and let it go.
It's been great, mate. The bond's always here, mate. We've got a close bond, and I'll always be thankful for that, pal. Always.
And that's why I wanted to do this, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? Not for my benefit or your benefit, for, you know what I mean, to help, you know what I mean, grow this wee side project that Will's got, and you know what I mean, awareness for it, and you know what I mean,
that's appreciated,
and make it something that, you know what I mean, people can relate to and talk about, you know what I mean. But definitely, man. I'm just at a place where I'm ready to move on with stuff now and ready to kick on, you know what I mean, and that's what I've been working towards the last few months and, you know what I mean, weeks, and continue to do the now. It's just better myself in any way I can, make myself stronger mentally, physically.
Just another stage in your life, Paul. And I think for Will and I's point of view, mate, that we couldn't be any more proud of you, mate. And I think you're doing fantastic through everything. You really are. I'm looking forward to your future, Paul.
I know, mate, so am I, and what my future holds.
And your dad
Really?
be proud of you, So
Of course you would. Of course you would.
I know. Aye, man, that's all I've got to say. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think I could say anything else other than
I've got a question, right?
go.
It's a bit, yeah, curveball, right? Do you feel that in any way you have let your dad down? Or your family?
No, I don't feel like I have, but there's days where I do feel that. You know what I mean? I don't believe that, but there's days where I do feel it. Like I've let down, you know what I mean, Lucy. You know what I mean, for not being the partner that I want to be, or let down my mum for not being as a productive son that I should be, or you know what I mean, letting down people that I work with. You know what I mean, because I've just no got the energy to put in what I usually put into a day or whatever, and I did beat myself up about that. You know what I mean, but I don't believe it, but I feel it, if you get me. You know what I mean.
Mhm.
It's no part of my belief system, but it's definitely, I do feel that way some days when I'm having shit days or struggling, that, you know what I mean, that I'm letting people down, and most of all myself. You know what I mean. Like, most of all, I feel like I let down myself quite a lot. You know what I mean. I also say, like, 4 years on for, you know what I mean, my dad dying, I'm still like in the same job that I'm in. I'm still doing certain things the same, and I'm not seeing any progression and stuff like that as well. And I beat myself up about that. I honestly, I beat myself up about a lot of things. You know what I mean? And I would say that's the answer. I believe that I'm not letting anybody down, but I don't feel that way sometimes.
I don't
Just
think
put a
you're,
lot
pal.
of
It's not in your nature, mate. It's not in your nature. You're a stand-up guy, mate.
I appreciate it, Bob.
Really, mate. I don't think you see the resilience and adversity you've got, mate. I think you're doing fantastic, Paul. Really, really, and that's part of how your dad brought you up, mate. That's who moulded you into the guy you are today.
I know, mate. I know.
That and your mum. Do you know what I mean?
Of course, mate. I do appreciate it. You know what I mean? And I appreciate you and I will, mate. You know what I mean? Being able to even being where you are and, you know what I mean, still being an active friend, you know what I mean?
I'm
Mate,
still with you no matter what anyway. I always be there. You can't get rid of me, even if I'm like Africa or something like that.
If you
mate,
don't want rid of you, pal.
I've got a bad
No.
smell. I hang about.
Unfortunately, that's true.
Yeah.
Nah,
So
but,
for anyone out there that's watching, right? Have you
mhm.
got any maybe you banner come up? Any advice and coping strategies that you could give them to try and help them through dealing with bereavement or the effects of having a cleft lip and all that stuff? What advice can
I
you give
think
them?
if anybody's got a cleft lip, the best thing to do is always speak to your doctors, always speak to your surgeons, always tell them how far you want to take your surgeries, because you can cut them off at 16 if you wish. You know what I mean? There's some people I know that have not completed the surgeries like I have, and they look completely different to me. They look more noticeable. Like, they've got a cleft. You know what I mean? Whereas you said I didn't look as noticeable, but it's up to you. You decide how far you want to take that journey. You know what I mean? And always like speak to family and friends and get their opinions. You know what I mean? And check in like with the therapists and stuff like that they give you. In terms of like bereavement and anxiety and stuff, I'd always say talking is the best form of healing it, and making sure that you set small, achievable, productive goals. I've had a habit in the last 4 years of setting massive targets and never reaching them because I never broke them down into baby steps. You know what I mean? And when I didn't get them, I was so upset and so anxious and so done in with myself that, you know what I mean, I was just hurting myself. So if you're going through bereavement or anxiety and stuff like that, small steps, you know what I mean? If it's going for a walk, you know what I mean, every day at a certain time, and then adding something else in, and then adding something else in, before you know it, you'll be back up to a full-time productive person again. You know what I mean? But baby step it, you know what I mean?
Most importantly, mate, speak to somebody about it. Speak to somebody about it. Don't bottle it up.
Exactly. Speak to as many people as you can, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And get different perspectives, you know what I mean? And if you get 2 or 3 people saying the same thing, then take that advice and see where it goes.
Definitely.
And let yourself go through all the emotions.
Exactly, man. You need to let yourself go
Let
through
the
it, but
emotions out.
hard on yourself, you know what I mean? But it's easier said than done, because
Yeah.
all 3 of us, you know what I mean, have beat ourselves up, you know what I mean, for how we feel, and we've tormented ourselves with how we feel, and each and every one of us have came to each other and got the same advice that we would give each other, that you can't beat yourself up, you need to baby step it, you need to take your time, you need to, you know what I mean, allow it to be a blip, allow it to be a small setback, don't allow it to be a major setback, keep pushing, keep doing this, keep doing that, and it is all there, like, in what we call our mental health toolbox. But when you're going through it, you don't always reach for the tools, you know what I mean? Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't, but it's about early action on it as much as possible, recognising that you're slumping a wee bit, or recognising that you're taking a wee dip in mood, and just about putting more things into your day, more productive things into your day, exercise, you know what I mean, friends, whatever, you know what I mean, and that's something I'm going to do as well, is get more involved with friends again, you know what I mean, and like I says, I might have not been the best pal of this period of time during bereavement, you know what I mean, but I'll certainly become a better friend, you know what I mean, to everybody that I can, and get in touch with more people again, and reach out, but that's on me, you know what I mean, and that's one of the things I need to work on.
Brilliant, pal. Brilliant.
Right.
Have you anything to add to that, Will?
Ben's basically just said it all. It's okay to be not okay. As Ben said, talking, and the same as Bob, talking's the best cure. Just talk about everything, how you're feeling, how you're not feeling. Don't hold any emotions back. People will probably say to you, let yourself grieve. To me at the time, I was wondering, what the fuck does that mean? Let yourself grieve. But as time goes on, you start to realise that talking and letting all your emotions out, whether it be anger, guilt, sadness, happiness, whatever it is that's coming out, just let it all out. Don't hold it back, because it's the worst thing you can do. I'd done that myself. When I was alone, I was okay. When I was around family, I was very cold. I didn't show any emotion at all, because I felt I had to be strong. But I had no one there for me. So
You can.
Yeah.
That's the good thing about the Green Sunrise podcast. That was founded on this. It was founded for to get the message out, for to do the interviewing like we're doing here, have co-hosts and a guest on. It's about getting. There's so many been diverse stories on Green Sunrise up to now, and it's goodwill that you're doing another one for even for where you're staying, mate. Just putting another spin on it as well. It just adds to that. Everything that we've talked about. Whoever listens to this, whoever's going through grief, or whoever's going through the same thing you went through with your cleft palate and stuff, Ben, is going to be really, really helpful for somebody. There might be something that's been said that'll just help them just that wee bit more.
Exactly, mate. Exactly.
Is there any wee tips you want to give, Bob?
Nothing at all, Paul. I think it's been a brilliant episode. Ben, you've been really forward and saying what you're saying, mate. I admire your bravery, mate, about what you spoke about. I could clearly see how upset you were getting at one point, mate, but that's just natural.
Aye.
And that's testimony how amazing fella your dad was, mate. Do you know what I mean? I know both of you have lost your fathers, and you will have gained another one, mate, which has been fantastic. But I've got my dad in his late 80s. He's 84, mate. He's suffering from quite progressed dementia. So I know with him and my mother at 82, mate, that I'm on a fine timeline with him. But I can get upset, mate, thinking about that. Do you know what I mean? About the loss that's coming. But I've also delighted that I've had 84 plus years or whatever it is I'm going to have with my dad, and the memories that I've had with him, and what you both can associate with as well, mate. That you hold on to the memories, the character of who the person was, how much impact it had on your life, the positive side of that as well. As well as, if we're being honest, there's some wee tiny negative things, but the positives are way percentage outweigh all the negative things.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think it's been a great show, mate. Well, I can't thank you enough, mate, for putting this platform again, an extension of Green Sunrise.
Thank you, mate.
And Ben, thanks for coming on. I've been wanting to do this for a while with the both of you, so have.
Yeah, definitely.
That was good. I'm glad we did it.
Get around to it.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go for the just now anyway, troops. But it's been a pleasure to everybody
Yeah, mate.
listening and who listens.
Yeah, definitely, Paul.